Make a move, make it matter.
Yeah.
Forget the rest.
Are y'all feeling better?
You're rocking with the best radio station on the planet. SDM Live Unplugged.
Welcome back. It is the Fourth Letter Radio. We are here on SDM Live. This is Gina Mariamatal, better known as Rhythm de Trois, which is Rhythm in Detroit. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Welcome
Thank you.
to
Peace,
my
peace.
co-host. Over here to my left, I have Jabril.
That's right.
Halim Shabazz. I'm doing so much better with names. Just thank you. Also have my panelist of scientists. I have Taji Ali. Darul.
Yes.
Thank you for coming back.
Of course.
And then we have our special guest here. This is Baba Blair.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming on board with us today, Baba Blair.
You're welcome.
I'm going to talk about why Baba Blair is here. But what I want to do first is share this article from the History Channel. So, in 1969, a group of children sat down to a free breakfast before school. On the menu, chocolate, milk, eggs, meat, cereal, and fresh oranges. The scene wouldn't be out of place in a school cafeteria these days, but the federal government wasn't providing the food. Instead, breakfast was served thanks to the Black Panther Party. At the time, the militant Black Nationalist Party was vilified in the news media and feared by those intimidated by its message of Black power and its commitment to ending police brutality and the subjugation of Black Americans. But for students eating breakfast, the Black Panthers' politics were less interesting than the meals they were providing. The children, many of whom had never eaten breakfast before the Panthers started their program, think the Panthers are groovy and very nice for doing this for them. The program may have been groovy, but its purpose was to fuel revolution by encouraging Black people's survival. From 1969 through the early 1970s, the Black Panthers' free breakfast for school children program fed tens of thousands of hungry kids. It was just one facet of a wealth of social programs created by the party. And it helped contribute to the existence of a federal free breakfast program today. And how many of us know what that is? Anybody know the name of that program?
School lunch is it?
Well, it's called WIC, Women's,
WIC.
Infant, and Children. Is that amazing?
Yeah, the
Right.
government adopted it.
They did. They did. And so what we're introducing...
Co-opted it.
Co-opted it.
There we go. Another word for it is cultural
Appropriation.
Expropriation.
Expropriation.
yeah. So this is why we're introducing this to you today, because our guest is a previous member, still a lifetime member, in heart and in commitment to the Black Panther Party. So we want to welcome you, Baba Blair.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there's no such thing as an ex-Black Panther.
Okay.
All Black Panthers, all those who were actively involved in the Black Panthers and those who were actively supportive of the Black Panthers continued on with the spirit of the Black Panthers, because it wasn't about the Black Panthers. It was about growing and nurturing revolutionary resistance to our survival.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That leads us into one of the questions we were going to ask is the projects. What are the projects on the table for you as a lifetime member, as your commitment to the cause? Tell us a little bit about Project 2, actually, because Project 2 is what we're talking about right now. Is the Project 1, and then there was Project 2. So share a little bit about Project 2.
Okay. Project 2, we're talking about workforce development.
Okay.
What
Well,
we're talking
let's go
about,
back to
the
Project
Detroit
1.
Yes.
Project 1 is well, you go ahead and share that with us.
Yes. Project 1, the primary importance of the Detroit Black Panther Historical Project is to bring us to create opportunity for the Detroit Black Panthers, the rank and file, the brothers and sisters who did the Breakfast for Children programs, the brothers and sisters who delivered the clothes, who drove people back and forth to various services, those who did the political education. Those often were not the high-profile Panthers. Those Panthers in those high-profile positions often were before the press, or very, very often in the case of the Black Panthers, we were on the run. So we weren't there to feed the Breakfast for Children program. We served where we could. So project number one is the Detroit Black Panther Historical Project. I have found, since my release from prison after 36 years of incarcerations in the Michigan Department of Corrections, I was shocked that so few people knew about the Detroit Black Panthers, that so few people could name more than 2 Detroit Black Panthers, and that people were unaware, the Detroiters were unaware of the critical importance and significance of the Detroit branch of the Black Panthers, which was unique. And so that's a priority for us. What I found is that Detroit Black Panthers, because of the level and the intensity of counterintelligence programs launched against them, that the 3 generations, perhaps 4, I'm not certain of that, I think there were like 3 generations of the Detroit Black Panthers, and they hardly know each other. The reason for that was that the counterintelligence programs were so insidious. There was such devastation. Till when I came to prison in 75 in Michigan, I was caught in proximity to several hundred guns and convicted of a robbery at that time. And I came to prison in Michigan. I stepped into Jackson, Michigan, and there were more Black Panthers in that prison than there were in many full chapters.
Wow.
And
So there is a word that I like to use in academia called ontology, and it means big, little, big, little, big, little, or it is the relative, it's the relation between, in chronological order, in history. So when you're talking about all of the Black Panthers being incarcerated and not knowing each other, it takes me back in an ontological way to the slave ships.
yes,
Because they also all didn't have the capacity to communicate because they didn't speak the same language, and they were also pitted against each other. And what that tells me is generationally or intergenerationally, slave language, slave culture continues. And it's the same thing. It's just another form of slavery. But it just that, I had to point that out.
I agree. Counterintelligence, Willie Lynch,
Yes.
Reverse psychology, applied psychology, oppress a people enough, oppress a people until they accept what the Jews and the Germans later classified as the Stockholm Syndrome. We talk more about black-on-black crime than the omnipotent white-on-black crime.
Especially in psychology, when they can apply things or put things in order to orchestrate black-on-black crime,
Exactly.
like puppet strings, whether that's poverty, because I see that's a common link around the world. Where there's poverty, there's eventually crime.
There has to be. Where there's poverty, where there's no work, I got to feed my babies. I'm going to do that.
Yeah, and
Okay.
also crime, though, takes 2 factors. One is the opportunity, and then the other is a lack of protection. So the less protection you have and the more opportunity. If the opportunity is not there to do crime, meaning that if I don't put this here for you to take, okay, so that's the setup. That's the setup.
And I would challenge that. It's impolite for
Let's go.
for guests to challenge our host.
No, it's very polite. Let's go.
It's not about opportunity. It's about necessity.
Mm-hmm.
When people have to eat, people have to think about eating for tomorrow. And as in the case of Detroit, hundreds of thousands of jobs were taken out of the city, out of the metropolis. 100,000 of them over what, 10-year period? I'm sure you know those numbers better than I. You know, hundreds of thousands or even tens of thousands. But when you count the metropolis of Detroit, we're talking about a deliberate, insidious plan to criminalize, because a preacher compelled to feed his flock will order the mighty men of valor to the greatest crime against humanity, against humanity. A preacher is biblical, Quranic. Where the children, the followers of the prophet suffered, he sent the soldiers there first. There first. Jesus said, challenge the wealthy first.
That's the capitalism. But so you would have to buy into capitalism first. Me living in West Africa, feeding each other or eating is not a singular thing. So you have to buy into individualism. You would have to first buy into it's all about me, you know, brother to brother. If there are 7 families, you can each go to one house, one day a week, and you would eat every single day. And that's exactly what they do. So you have to actually buy into the concept of capitalism, what you're talking about, the industry and the jobs and the all about me, and it's
or have it imposed on you.
yes,
Right.
that's
Right.
the cultural.
An omnipotent
Yeah.
force that says this is the way.
And it's almost like these things, these groups, right, would naturally arise because of the condition that we're brought in. And, you know, people need to be able to feed their families. They need to be able to take care of and maintain and sustain. And so if you notice, like throughout history, many groups that they would deem, you know, radical or gangs or whatever like that, they all started out of a need to provide for their communities. You know?
The movie Judas and the Rise of the Black Messiah, do you find that to be historically accurate to your experiences or experiences that you've observed?
Judas and the Black Messiah. Wow. First of all, let me be clear that I think that the movie was an amazing act in itself. It took a revolutionary act for black folks, to produce a major film in collaboration with the studios of Hollywood. It took black.
I haven't seen the movie yet, but I feel like going to go watch that.
Black millionaires and billionaires. I'm talking about, and I've talked to a couple of them personally, made it absolutely clear to the world, we are going to do this. We would like your mechanisms, but we are going to do this ourselves, and we're going to do it with as much integrity as we can manage. So when we look at, I'm going to lift up Charles D. King, black billionaire. You know, I'm to my Marco Productions, the largest people of color owned production. It does all of the Hollywood stuff, all of it in the world. Back this film. That's why it happened. Charles D. King, Ryan Coogler, and others of our superstars in the industry, but also our up-and-coming moguls, whatever that's pronounced. Moguls. Said, we are going to tell this story, and we're going to do it with as much integrity as we can. And so what they, to my knowledge, what they did is that Shaka King himself, and he and his staff interviewed over 100 people.
Credible sources?
All of us, everybody they could reach. I mean, everybody. Many of us didn't talk, couldn't talk about certain things because the picture of the Black Panthers that the mass media has put out is not a true depiction.
Of course not.
Yeah. And I think that these brothers and sisters try to stay true. And then they also found that there were certain things that they knew and suspected that they could not speak on or project or what is the word? Or speaking to. And then, so that's a good place to pause that and wait for.
Well, I'd like to know what has replaced the Black Panther Party. The first project talks about the deep repression of the Detroit Black Panther Party, and that's one of the projects that you're committed to. But why would we not need it again now, and why is it not still here? Was there enough repression back at that time to keep us from rising up again, or is it not needed? And if it's not needed, what has replaced it, or are we just in a complacent state?
Wow.
Is that a loaded question?
That was like loaded. Fred Hampton said in many speeches, you can kill a revolution. You can kill a revolutionary, but you can't kill a revolution. And a revolution, our revolution is about truth.
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 Okay.
Truth in history, truth in facts. It's about objective, dialectical, scientific analysis of history and the science of human evolution. We understand very clearly who we are. Okay? We are that 120 million estimated Africans removed from Africa. Here in North America, we are counted most clearly as that 4 million emancipated slaves, that 4 million Africans who emancipated themselves. Our ancestors fought like hell. And white folks thought they was fighting. You know? The Union thought it was fighting. And brothers and sisters, our ancestors fought like hell. And then at the end of that, as is evidenced in history, outran everybody back to the plantations because they already understood what the paddy wagons were for. There were orders among, and we read this. We don't give it a lot of credit in history, but there was a gentleman's agreement at that time between the major plantations that if the South lost the war, they would kill all the black male slaves before surrender, because before surrender, they could not be prosecuted.
Interesting.
So, guess what? Your great-great-great-granddaddy might have been some kin to Jesse Owens because he got back to that plantation before them white boys did. And he said, Mama, Unc, what? Strap up and let's go. And this is history. We read bits and pieces of it, right? They left the paddy wagons. They named the police after them. They named the current
Patty.
Yeah, Patty.
St. Patrick's.
No, Patty.
Paddy wagons. Paddy wagons, but Is it true that like some of the Irish immigrants became police officers?
I mean, yes, thank you.
And I think that it's interesting though, because history, when you were in this education system, you know, I'm sure it changed a lot to today, where they try to say, instead of slave, they say indentured servant, as if it was a option. You know,
Well, I don't know how to respond to that.
Oh, let
I'm
me
just saying,
respond to it. Hold on.
okay, that meant the education.
Well, my experience in West Africa, I can imagine what we call a tubab, which is what they call me, the tubab, which is the white people.
What?
Yeah, I'm called a tubab or the Mexican lady.
Wow.
But I can imagine the tubabs arriving in a West African village and seeing exactly how they're living, because when I was living there, I can tell you exactly what they engaged with and what they saw and what they decided they wanted to bring back with them is people living in the home, providing for you as servants. I can see it becoming exploited and twisted in a pretzel and misconstrued and defecated on, brought back. And because it isn't in a natural form, it's going to appear to be slavery. Because right now I can go to my home in Africa and there's at least 5 to 7 people who live in the home. The amount of money that's required to maintain them can be as little as $40 a month for them to provide all
Each?
types of things. Yeah, each. And you cannot go higher than that, which I tried to do. For my child, I wanted to give my nanny more money than 40 because I just couldn't do that. And so a friend of mine who referred her had this nanny's cousin, and she said, did it. That's not going to happen. That means no. Because then her nanny would ask for more money. And as soon as she heard about that increase, she would go back and ask for an increase. So, in love, she just said, don't come over here trying to change things. You could take her shopping, but that's the amount of money. Now, of course, at that time, one of my dollars was $700. So there is a big exchange, and $40 is a lot of money for a young lady to be over there. But I can see everything. I can see the polygamy in the home and what they, their raunchy, idea of polygamy with the house Negroes in the home with the white wife. I can see them trying to duplicate and copycat. Am I saying copycat? Somebody help me out. Copycat what they're seeing, without love and spirituality and, love for God and an understanding and the morals of, no single women and no single mothers and elders in the home. Just like you said, you're committed to the millennials. And I'm seeing this exchange here, and I'm like, wow, I see the aura. I just see information going like this, whoosh, into his head from this gentleman to him, and he's just receiving it. And in this individualized culture, we cut off the head and the feet. So then you've got just the people right in the middle. In West Africa, the people in the middle aren't in the home. They're out working. Then they put the 70-year-old and the 2-year-old together in the home, and that's where they are. What we do is we put the 60 and 70-year-old in the nursing home, and we put the children in the child care center, and neither one of those groups are getting any type of nurturing. There in the Congo, it's called Kindizi, which is the art of babysitting. And the purpose of the 65 and the 70-year-old is for that information to come from here to there, to the 2-year-old. It isn't for the 30 and 40-year-old to raise children. That's not, you're the worker. You bring the money home. So,
Leave me my grandbabies.
Yeah. And that's exactly so that you can feed 70 years, 70, 60, 70, 80 years into the 2 and 5 up until the point that they're working. But right there in the middle, they're not in the home. And here they have it flipped. They cut off the head. They have, and it's all purposeful. They have dementia and they have Alzheimer's, which are all specifically targeting your memory, so that you cannot have intergenerational social inheritance. Because you're not able to, you can't even remember the baby's name.
Oh my God.
With the Alzheimer and the dementia. So they're somehow feeding that in. And then the child care center institutionalize the child where no one is touching that child.
For real.
No one, just anybody, right?
I actually had that experience. My oldest daughter, I was very uncomfortable with the physical contact and just the sensual contact between my grandchildren and I. And because she had
the mic
not,
a little close, or come close to the mic.
yes,
Thank you.
she had. I had been in prison for 26 years, so she had not witnessed men in the home. Men, she could recall our intimacy, our very personal one-to-one paternal and daughter relationship, but she couldn't recall the details. And so I returned home from prison. She has her first children. She has twins. And I remember her one day sitting there looking at me like, Daddy. And I was like, nope. She was like, what do you mean? I said, I know you haven't seen this, but this sensual contact, this love, this embrace, which is so often negated by incarceration, criminalization, drug addiction, perversion, but that is essential to the healthy development of a child. Raise a child with no touch, and you raise a wild animal.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And have a couple of generations of people who accept this abusive perspective as touch being sexual. Sensual and sexual are different. There's nothing greater between us than this exchange. That's sensual.
Yeah.
Okay? The dap. You know? The touch. The things that are not part of a capitalist socialization. Don't care about your fellow worker. Just get your 8 hours in. Get it in. Get your 12 hours in. Don't stop to say, I know your hand hurts. Let me massage it for a moment, bro. You know? So what you said just really touched an important nerve with me. And my daughter and I had to talk about this, a while later.
Because she's now a woman. And the last time you saw her, she was how old?
Oh, 8.
See? So now you have on both sides, on both the side of the male that's incarcerated and the 8-year-old, and then when they meet each other again 26 years later, all of that neglect and absence is nothing but, a social inheritance that's really,
Programming.
yeah, it's very strategic.
Even touch or
Very strategic.
things today, capitalistic. Everything's an exchange rate when it gets. Of course, men should have money, but it's like, I guess some men feel like, oh, they don't feel loved if they don't have money, or a man requires these things from a woman, specifically these specific things from a woman. It's an exchange rate. It's not based on the benefit of the whole.
The benefit of the whole, the family, the village, the entire community. Because we're going back to capitalism. It's all about
Exactly.
me.
And socialism.
Yeah, socialism, yeah.
Even marriage and exchange. Exchange is normal. Exchange is normal. Exchange in relationships is historical in every culture. What capitalism did is said, let's remove the exchange, put male dominance. We need men working. And let's put that in the place of equal relationships and mutual aid and exchange in relationships. And that's a terrible burden for a man, that you have a woman who might be smarter than you. Mine definitely smarter than me. I'm just saying, you know.
But do you think that there's anything that goes into the destabilization of the family unit, right? By taking the men out of the family and right, locking them away. Like, what's the impact to the family as a whole from having him absent?
I did roughly 10 years in prison. I was caught in a house with several hundred guns, Black Panther. We had, and I was convicted. I came home and I met my wife, and we had 3 children. And then I was taken away and convicted, and I did 26 years. And immediately, in fact, there's a story that I tell. I was arrested. I knew I was gone. I actually thought this is a life bit. After I survived the arrest, because I wasn't planning to survive the arrest, I actually went out there, on this arrest with guns in hand, but circumstances, were not what I thought they would be. Somebody decided that I should not die. But my first, serious thought, I'm standing in the bullpen. I'm caught with money pack, backpack, everything. I got all the gear, guns, all this. And I remember I was planning my life in prison, these first few minutes. I'm standing there, and it was one of the most spiritual moments in my life. I felt like God opened up my head. I'm holding on to the bars. And I'm like, damn, I'm gone. And then it dawned on me. Then it came to me. And for the first time, with a level of sincerity that I had not prayed in a long time, I just said, oh, God, what about my woman and my babies? And at that point, my political analysis changed, because it was the first time in my adult life when I knew that I had made a horrible, horrible mistake. I had left my queen and our 3 children to deal with this world on their own, and I did not even have the dignity of suicide by police, because I went out there to go. And it just didn't happen like that. The result of that deals directly to your questions, was that when I got to the prison, after my conviction, 30-year sentence, probably gonna die in prison, got beefs up in here, Popo gonna want me dead, because it's the way to go, right? I started a parenting from prison program.
Wow.
Really? Wow.
Amazing.
I was like, and it was another case. We talk about like blacks in politics, blacks in law enforcement, the mean-ass black warden who worse than all the white wardens and all that, right? Can't compromise. Mad as hell that we acting like that, whatever. Or that he, And I'm walking the yard, and there was a warden, I think his name was Brown, and he was called the Prison Breaker. His 6'7", 250-pound brother who, I'm talking about straight off, straight out of the historical black colleges, the meanest motherfucker on the football team, everything. He's standing in the middle of the yard, and he's finna break Jackson Prison up, and I walked up to him. Gun towers. Freeze! You do not approach the ward. I walked up to him, and I'm like, "Hey man, I need some help." Now he know me because I'm on his list. I'm on his list of subversives, terrorists, whatever. Black Panther.
Yeah.
And he's like, "What's up?" I said, "Man, I need some help, man." He said, "Well, I said, I got 3 children out there, and I don't know what to do." He's like, "What?" I said, "You ain't got no counselors, nobody here, man. I don't know what to do." And I'm getting fucked up about it. I told him, I said, he said, "What you want to do?" I said, "I don't know." He said, "Write me a kite." Write me a kite means write me a letter. I wrote the man a letter. The man responded within days saying, "I approve of a parenting from prison program." And he gave me authority over his program staff. It was crazy. To call all the mobs together. And that's what we did. We called all the mobs together. Everybody, the Klan, everybody. I say, if you're a parent and you're trying to figure out how to help your child, if you got some information for me, how I can help my babies, how anybody can help your babies, this will be about. So that program was declared sacred throughout the Michigan Department Michigan Department of Corrections. No prisoner ever violated any of the ethics of that program. Muslims and Nazis sat together. Say they babies.
Because that's where their heart is.
Exactly.
That's powerful.
But can I just interject here? My doctorate program is based on a parenting program for incarcerated parents.
Oh, shit. We in love. We can just tell them, whoever your husband is, tell them you got somebody else.
Crying right now. I'm crying.
Just tell them.
That's divine. That's divine right there.
I'm in my dissertation stage. I have about 2 more months, and I still need more information.
Oh, I got
so
some stuff.
the heavens just opened up and said, "Here is all," and it's a black man.
Yes.
Man. That's
So,
divine right there.
the parenting from prison program, what we did is we called together prisoners. And I was like, "Ali, how you still getting visits? Your family comes. What you doing?" "Hey, man, you ain't had no visits yet. What you do?" Now, excuse me, but I want to talk to him first. I want to find out how he fucked up so I don't do that while I'm learning what you did, right? And so we took our experience, our best practices, our peer group information, and he said, "I tried to control her. One day she told me I had no control and she was gone. So were my children." Others said, "I tried to support her." "How did you support her?" Others, I just supported my children. I couldn't be there for her anymore, but I could be there for my children. I could send my family members. I could send my friends. I could send my homeboy. Instead of sending me that $100, drop it at my babies, And so we developed a parenting program that had 5 different pieces. We developed our own curriculum. I literally learned to type so that I could do this. And started off with communications. What are the means of communications, and how do we most effectively use them? Second part is communication skills. How do we most effectively use this? These are the means. We can write letters, we can do phone calls, we can send messages, and we can pray our ass off. then how do we use the means of communications, the phones, letters, messages, prayer? That's where I was at. Phone, messages, letters, prayer. For me, the most important thing actually was prayer. It made everything else happen. Okay? I mean,
Is that a group prayer amongst the males that are
everywhere.
incarcerated?
We just prayed everywhere.
Okay.
I would send messages to the Muslim service, to the Christian service, to the Muslim service. I said, hey, y'all put a prayer in for fathers, and they'd be like, got you, bro. And then they would send their brothers whose lives allowed them to participate. So we had communications, the means of communication, communication skills. We learned to write letters.
I'm writing all this down for my dissertation. I'm like,
Please. We learned what are our children's favorite colors. I learned to ask my children before how you doing? What's your favorite TV show?
So you would give them scripts to help them communicate. You all had scripts, or you what peer support and suggestions,
and we
recommendations.
developed the scripts. We did this in session. One time, there was this brother who was a functional illiterate. He could barely read or write. Okay, and his parental rights were being challenged. And so he came to the parenting program. And in a matter of months, just months, the man could phonically read. He could read. He would be, I didn't even know I could do this. But he was attempting to learn how, he wanted to learn how, he needed to learn how to write letters to the courts and to his children and to his family.
Phenomenal.
And the courts who had his entire record, and we sent it, right? We sent it. We said, now hold on. This was what he tested out on. In this program, we tested him again. He's tested 3 grades higher. In this program, the court started sentencing prisoners, ordering the prison to send prisoners to our parenting program, transferred me to other prisons because they had an obligation where fathers' rights were being challenged. They had an obligation to provide them with opportunity. And many times, even the incarcerated father was invaluable to the healthy upbringing of the child. But
So now we know why your life was saved. So you can bring this program to the prison.
Yeah,
That was a sacrifice. They threw you in the volcano, didn't they?
I often tell people that as torturous as it was, 26 years, 36 years altogether, that I would do it all again to impact the people along that road and to have them impact me. I would do it all again. I would pray for the strength to not sin as much as I have, for I have sinned. I've been a warrior.
I think that's very honorable, and I think it's interesting. It could be that some of the things we spoke about the skilled trades and the opportunities that are coming to Detroit, it seems like it could be, and it will be, that these programs, once we get them going, will actually impact the children of those prisoners.
Yeah, we've got them. They are. The Parenting from Prison program ran for 18 consecutive years officially, without ever any type of negative report. Not one. And it then became incorporated in multiple programs.
Of course.
Is this information in a book yet?
Movie.
Is that what I'm here for?
Maybe. The place where it shows up in a book is with Amanda Alexander. Her and some others, took our entire curriculum and then incorporated, but in several places, because nowhere else had anybody and this wasn't me. This was us. I happened to be the Black Panther in the Michigan Department of Corrections, who was considered a neutral between all the warring tribes.
So something that's coming up for me, just as a question, right? Like, with your circumstance and what you've been through, back then, how do you feel that the prison industrial complex now and the justice system now, do you feel like, with the verdict and all that's going on, with that type of, are we beyond that space now to have something
absolutely.
like that? Or
The Constitution of the United States says that slavery is legal. Becomes a constitutional right, forced, compelled, what is it? I forget the exact way they word it. A servitude is permissible only if you have been convicted of a crime. So,
Not if you committed it, if you've been convicted.
if you've been convicted of a crime,
but is that what's happening? Do we believe that's what's happening now? Like, people are actually being convicted, or just like with the recent
people are
George
being
Floyd,
enslaved.
Yeah.
Every single breath of an offender, of an incarcerated person, is paid for by tax dollars. Everything.
That's true.
Every essential survival, medical, education. When you go crazy, when you spit on the floor, somebody got to clean it up and somebody get paid for doing it. When you fight with the police because they're trying to kill you, somebody got to pay for your medical care, and they get double and time off and everything.
It costs more to hold a prisoner than it does to put them through college.
Exactly. And multiply that by 36 years.
Yeah.
Multiply that by, I sat in prison and I saw hundreds of thousands of slaves. I was a political prisoner and a prisoner of war. And so I was cognizant of why I was there, why I was involved in the things that I was involved in. But I met your cousins and your aunts and your fathers, and many of them didn't know why they was there. They thought that they were there simply because of whatever crime they were accused of, did, or whatever. But this is white supremacy. This is slavery.
And there are so many
Hundreds,
that do
yes.
not make it to the box. Those
Right.
that are, without melanin, don't make it to the box. So it's all about the prison industrial complex and who's going to do that time and who is going to, make that cash app, that ding, ding, ching, ching.
Or
Yeah.
I think the last prison I was in, there was 40,000 people in this rural area, right? And they got $170 million from the prison. All they know of black folks is the prisoners that they see and the profit, the wages that they make.
That's amazing to look at it and put yourself in the slave master, the prison warden, the city official, the official's shoes. Sit in the shoe for a minute and take a look at that.
I start to think about white supremacy, those who benefit, and those benefits that they get from them, and how those benefits make it easy to keep quiet. Today, I was driving down East Jefferson, and I seen so many police officers pulling over so many people, but I always looking to see who's driving, and they were white drivers, majority. And I'm thinking like, man, I was going to write a status and say, watch out on East Jefferson, but I was thinking, well, wait, they're pulling over a lot of white drivers, Should I speak out against that? Should I bring attention to that? Or
Absolutely, yes.
But I'm saying, though, that's how people who benefit from this system
Think.
think.
If it's not me, I don't need to speak up.
Yes. And how support for the paramilitary, law enforcement, for the slave catchers, for criminalization is the same. Is the same. Working class white folks who get jobs in Detroit and then are targeted, face the same, not the same, but face a degree of the same discrimination that black folks and people of color face. And we have to be, I think, cognizant of persecution, because I ain't down for persecuting white folks.
But do you think that do you believe that the system is actually inherently like unbiased? Because so looking at the George Floyd and the officer that was convicted, right? This is like almost the first time that an officer actually been gone to trial and actually be convicted, and so a lot of people in the black community are like, wow, this, like, what does this mean for us, right? But thinking that if it were reversed, right, if this were a black officer that had the same issue, right, would they go through, have so many passes and pass after pass? But does this this verdict, what does it mean for the black community, or does it mean anything?
I couldn't watch the trial. I mean, I actually did not watch not one full day. I watched a few minutes because some other people had it, just was imposed on me. I'm glad for the verdict. Now he becomes a slave.
Because in his incarceration.
What do I think about this verdict? And what do I think? I think the trial was a public lynching. And I think that they responded to in the way that the system felt it had to respond. There was just too much evidence. But it's the same thing. It was the greatest show on earth.
There is this this ideology of kinfolk. And we know about kinfolk because if my cousins are on the grass and you come and mess with my cousins, then it's on, right?
Yeah.
But if it isn't kinfolk, then, like you said, you're going to turn your back. So we have to put ourselves in those shoes and to say
justice
that this
is
is
justice.
kinfolk. If they're riding up on someone just as you would, you want to know, I might know this person. You have that familiarity with that person. And so we can't dismiss the fact that, we're human and we have that kinfolk spirit amongst us. So when we are making a judgment, we're trying to measure, how close to home is that, and how much space do you have? So when you have the people who are in authority and there's no kinship there, of course, just like with us, that's the first thing that goes through your mind is the measure of how familiar you are with that person. How much are you going to give them the benefit of the doubt? And all of that conversation and de-escalation that would happen if you're familiar, if there is a kinship there. We can't dismiss it as humans. That's what's happening if they're engaged with someone and they feel a kinship. Just as you would.
Identity.
Yeah. But what is missing is the passion that an officer, a black officer, or a black male, the compassion that they would have. What they're missing. Well, they're missing the understanding that if we're in your shoes, we're not going to act and react as you do because there isn't passion. There's no passion against, black folks against white folks and that threat. There's no passion there. There's no, violent passion. And that's what they're missing. The idea that if it was me and I'm a white male and you got your knee on my neck, would you treat me the way that I'm treating you? And that's what they're missing. No.
They don't
because
want
there's no passion. There is no innate feeling of inferiority.
Kinship. Yes, I get you.
And I'm not feeling and that's what they're missing. That's that whole link there when it comes to blacks and whites is the idea that you must feel the same way about me as I feel about you. No, we don't. There's not that threat and that feeling of inferiority and that feeling of superiority is not there. We see you as we would see any other group of people, but we're the ones under surveillance and we're the ones who you have your eye on so that you can copy, create your trend, and manufacture all the things that we're doing. So we're constantly under surveillance, but we're not watching, you to copy you. You're watching us to copy us, and so we're the ones that are always over the radar.
So we're watching, seeking obedience, and you're watching, seeking replication and profit. Obedience is essential to our survival and success.
And that's why you get killed. That's why you get a young white male to walk down the street after he's killed people. So you've already killed people and you have a loaded weapon, but you're not going to get shot on sight just because of what you just said. But the black male will.
And I'd like to point out a contradiction in that. December 4th, 1969, assassination of Fred Hampton, Mark Clark, and the assault on the other 7 of us who survived that raid. The lead shooter was Gloves Davis, a black man, a killer, one of the most dangerous cops in Chicago.
So you were there the night of the raid.
And
that sounds like the book title, brother. Thank you. The Night of the Raid. Let's go.
even his gluttonous interviews afterwards, his smirk, his, the way he represented his actions, he described himself as though he was describing the movie that he saw of him coming in with 2 guns, doing a flip and killing the first person and shooting, the other sister in the arm and in the leg, and then opening up on the wall without hesitation. His affirmation for white supremacy and police brutality, and he became a celebrated agent of the police force.
Because he did it like the movies, like Tom, he went out with a bang. We have about 1 more minute of our show. We have been completely enthralled with Baba Blair of the Black Panther Party. So we want to thank you for coming on our show today. I do see a book in the future. I want to share with you, part of that dissertation is to take that project that you're talking about 1 step further. This might be why we're working, why we have met. But I created a phone app so that the parents can communicate with their children. So you talked about communication, writing, all those things in that the previous generation, but the new generation is a phone app. And I'd be more than happy to work with you to make that happen, particularly if we can make it a phone app that has a link to the Black Panther Party. I would love that. This is Day 3 with the Fourth Letter Radio, SDM Live. We've got Baba Blair, Taji Ali, and of course Jabril. Thank you, and we'll see y'all next week.
Peace.
Make a move, make it matter. Yeah. Forget the rest.
How y'all feeling that?
You're rocking with the best radio station on the planet. SDM Live Unplugged.